The BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup is brought to you by Gads Shocks and Townsend Vehicle Hire Rugby.
Hello and welcome to Anglesey for rounds 3, 4 and 5 of the 2016 BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. We've got all of the action from a triple header weekend here in North Wales coming up, but first let's take a look back at the first rounds at Snetterton. The first race at Snetterton saw the drivers tackle a damp track, but that certainly didn't have a negative effect on the racing. A returning Tom Roach led early on, but it was reigning champ Alan Henderson who was making moves towards the front, passing first James Blake Baldwin, then Roach, to take the lead at Riches. Despite Roach's best efforts to retake the lead, it was Henderson who continued where he left off last year, out on top with the race win. Race 2 saw a dry track and a terrific scrap for the lead between Henderson, Roach and Blake Baldwin. It was Blake Baldwin who eventually settled into the lead, as Roach's challenge was derailed by a flat tyre. Henderson and Greensmith battled for second, with the reigning champ prevailing, and it was Blake Baldwin who took home the win. Henderson though does lead the points, but by the narrowest of margins, with Blake Baldwin only a single point back. Johnny Greensmith is only 8 points back in third, with Liam Murphy fourth, and Will Chappell fifth. Qualifying at Anglesey took place in dry but misty conditions, and Tom Roach struggled for pace slightly, only managing fourth quickest. He will be looking to move forward in the races though, that's for sure. A welcome return for John Davies yielded a solid 5th place on the grid, whilst James Blake Baldwin managed second. Both AK Automotive drivers ran well, with Jack Harding third, but it was Alan Henderson again who was the man to beat, snatching the pole by just less than 1/10 of a second. So here's how they line up for round 3. It's Henderson and Blake Baldwin on the front row, Jack Harding and Tom Roach row 2, John Davies and Johnny Greensmith row 3 with Liam Murphy and Charlie Charman side by side on the 4th row. Row 5 is Carl Garnett from Anthony Neal, then outside the top 10 it's Paul Sheard and Richard Wickland on row 6, Alex Preston, Steve Dolman row 7 and Ray Worley and Jeremy Crook row 8. Row 9 is George Grant alongside Jim Hart, row 10 David Henderson and David Willoughby, row 11 Jamie Goddard and Alex King, and row 12 is Ian McDonald. So cars lined up on the grid then for round number 3 of the championship. First of 3 races here at Anglesey. As you can see, very damp and slippery conditions on the track. It's Alan Henderson on the inside on pole position, James Blake Baldwin alongside him. Watch for the red lights to go out. When they do, we'll go racing. We do that now, and it's an even start from both front row men, but then actually in the second phase of the start, it's Henderson that streaks ahead. Tom Roach has made a storming start from 4th place. He's already into 2nd as they make their way through turn 1, and now going after the race lead in towards the banking. Does he have a go on the brakes? No, not quite. We're on board with Johnny Greensmith in car number 5. Up ahead, Henderson just slips a little bit wide though. Roach gets up the inside of him. Meanwhile, Greensmith gets a tag in the tail as we go through the banking. That's Jack Harding who has just slipped ahead of him, but it is side by side for the race lead. Look through Church Corner, Roach on the inside, on the outside is Henderson. The grip in the wet is usually on the outside line, but it's not on the curb, and so as soon as Henderson hit the white and yellow painted curb, he lost traction, and so through into the race lead went Tom Roach. Out onto the school straight they go for the first time. There is Ray Worley going around the outside of Jeremy Crook. 2 wheels on the grass. Well, I said the curbs were slippery. The grass is even more so. That was brave from Ray, but he makes the move stick. Race leaders are still overlapping, look, but Roach does now hold on to the race lead out of Rocket. It's Henderson 2nd, 3rd place then for Blake Baldwin. 4th place with our onboard camera is Johnny Greensmith. They turn their way into the right-hander at Peel Corner. There's Charlie Charman in the white and red number 42 car. A little bit further down the order, look, with Liam Murphy in behind him on the first lap of the race. Out through Peel, down into the left-hander at the bottom of the hill, and we're on the full international circuit this weekend, so rather than going down through the corkscrew, we head out onto the back straight, the Tom Price straight, and into the hairpin at the end of the straight, which is where we do see quite a lot of overtaking. Out in front, Henderson getting away, Roach getting away from Henderson. with then Blake Baldwin and Greensmith in behind. These are the battles a bit further down the order. There's John Davies. Great to see John Davies back in the championship in the silver and purple number 33 car. He's got a new sponsor on board this year as well, Cybox Exhausts. We hope to see John back in several more rounds as the season goes on. He's in behind Liam Murphy in the blue and yellow number 3 car. Through the final turn they come then, onto the pit straight to complete one lap. There's Richard Wicklin, who has started this race down in 12th place. He's already picked a few places off though, and he's going up the inside of John Davies now into turn 1, and Wicklin just eases his way through. Very, very close stuff indeed, but he does go through, and he's now going to chase after the cars in front of him. John now slips back into the clutches of Alex Preston in the yellow number 32 machine. Then it's in behind them, Carl Garnett, by the looks of it, is the next car, but he's some way detached from this top 10 group. Through Church Corner then, John Davies, no one anywhere near the apex. Look, as I said, the grip is outside of these corners, not on the rubbered up racing line. That becomes very slippery in the wet. It's very counterintuitive. You have to run right out to the edge of the circuit, particularly through the low speed corners, to find any sort of traction. Into Rocket, and Preston closing in. There is Charlie Charman with Liam Murphy keen to try and find a way through. Liam often seems to struggle a little bit for setup in the wet, and with qualifying having been dry, this is the first wet running they've had today, so several drivers perhaps will be struggling just to find the optimum setup. Through Peel, Murphy coming under pressure from the other blue car look of Richard Wicklin, number 76. Richard is thinking about having a go, maybe up the inside, maybe down the outside, into the left-hander at the top of the corkscrew. Out towards the hairpin. Wicklin is visibly quicker off the corner and dives back over to the inside. Murphy sees that coming at the last second, so comes across to cover. Now he's drifting back out to the outside edge of the track though, and that leaves the door wide open for Richard Wicklin. Wicklin gets up the inside, and that's another place picked off. Great driving this from Richard. He's clearly got that car set up well, and he's now setting off after Charlie Charman. Charlie, in fact, is already thinking about defending because Wicklin was so quick off the corner. He's going for another place now. Wicklin up the inside into the final corner, and if he can get the car stopped on the brakes, which he, well, sort of does, he will go through. Trades a bit of paint with Charlie Charman. Charlie now gets eased out wide as a result, and Liam Murphy gets his nose alongside. Murphy on the inside line into turn 1. Charman trying to find the grip on the outside, and will do so hangs on. Tom Roach is already 3.8 seconds ahead of Alan Henderson. It's then Blake Baldwin third, Greensmith, Harding and Neal fourth, fifth and sixth. Then it's Wicklin, Charman, Murphy and Davies rounding out the top 10. Paul Sheard, by the way, in car number 18 is back in the championship this weekend. Watch for him. He is contesting in the Masters element of the championship as well this year. The man behind Paul Sheard racing as off goes Carl Garnett in the number 19 car. And that is at the top of the corkscrew by the look of it. And Carl, who qualified 9th, had a good qualifying session, but just as locked up, and as soon as he hit the grass, found there was absolutely no grip, and straight off into the tyre wall he went. James Blake Baldwin has the fastest lap of the race then, 1 minute 51.857, and that he has set whilst trying to chase down the cars in front. Whether he's got time to do so, we'll wait and see. Meanwhile, Liam Murphy's up the inside of Charman into the last corner. Nice move made there. Charman tries to get a switch back on the exit, but can't find the traction. Now has to watch his mirrors because John Davies is there in the silver and purple car. This is all towards the back end of the top 10, but the fighting is just as fierce as if it were for the race lead. Out of turn 1. New drivers getting a bit brave now over the curbs, aren't they, as we get into the race. Davies goes up the inside of Charman. That's a good move. Bit of a dive bomb move on the inside, but again, the grip is not there, and you can see that there. Couldn't get the power down on the exit of the corner, and Charman just drives back right on the outside of him. He'll get his car back in front before they turn into Church Corner, and so Charman hangs on to the place. That was a perfect example there of how the inside line, the traditional racing line, is not necessarily the quickest way through. This is the fight for the Masters lead, meanwhile, between Paul Sheard in the white, orange and blue car and the black and yellow car of Ray Worley. Ray tries to have maybe a peek of a look at the inside into the first corner. And again then, Paul is forced to defend into the banking. Ray Worley trying to find a way through, and drivers in the Masters element of the races certainly do like to get themselves stuck in, don't they? And they enjoy their battles. They may be a bit further down the order, but they're very, very entertaining indeed. Sheard just gets a good run out of Church Corner this time and is able to pull a few car lengths over Ray Worley. But Ray, I'm sure, will continue to try and fight back as the race goes on. He's closing in already under braking. Meanwhile, Jack Harding is in a real sandwich here. He's got Anthony Neild in front of him. He's got Liam Murphy behind him through Peel. And Murphy, again, has looked to the inside. Beautiful livery on Jack's car this year. You can tell he's a NASCAR fan, can't you? Had a NASCAR-inspired livery last year. This year he's got the STP colours of Richard Petty on his car. Really, really striking livery in a well-prepared car by AK Automotive. Teammate now, of course, to the reigning champion Alan Henderson, the man who runs second in this race. Don't forget, it's Tom Roach who's running away with it out in front. Liam Murphy's going up the inside of Harding, though, into the hairpin. And Jack, who says he's just struggling a little bit for a wet weather setup this weekend, loses another place. Now, Blake Baldwin has now caught Alan Henderson for second place. He set that fastest lap a little while ago, but he's running out of time, really. The laps are winding down. Has he got enough time to find a way past the reigning champ? He's right out over the curb as they head out of turn one. This is the final lap of the race, and he'll be looking really to try and get the run out of the next corner. Church tuck into the slipstream down the school straight, which is anything but straight. It's got two very quick kinks to the right in the middle of it, but it is flat out. And then into the braking zone at Rocket, perhaps try and make his move. Let's see, did he get a good run out of Church? It's not bad, but Henderson was pretty quick as well. To the inside line goes Blake Baldwin. And can he find a way through on the brakes? He's going to go for it, throws one up the inside. Henderson's late on the brakes. They almost make a bit of contact, but Henderson will, I think, keep hold of second for now. But he certainly, Blake Baldwin has him on the ropes, doesn't he? He's forcing Alan to drive defensively. Both cars scrabbling for traction as they come out of the banking for the final time in towards Peel. And really only one more genuine overtaking opportunity left, you'd say, on the track. And it's not this corner, it's the next corner. Then again, if Alan Henderson makes a mistake, that might open the door for Blake Baldwin as well. A bit of a lock-up there from Alan, as he's definitely feeling the pressure. Off in the distance, you can see Tom Roach well on his way to his first win of the year, and he comes into this race 45 points behind the championship leader Henderson, so this is a valuable race win for Tom, but he's only going to take a couple of points out of Alan. So we'll wait and see then what happens in the remaining couple of corners. For the time being, though, Tom Roach is heading through the final turn. He's heading onto the pit straight, and he is about to see the checkered flag. Tom Roach takes his first win of 2016, and a dominant one at that. What's happening for second place is very close indeed, as Blake Baldwin is all out of shape coming out of the final turn. He threw everything he had at Alan Henderson on that final lap, but it's Alan that hangs on for second. Third is Blake Baldwin, fourth Greensmith. Richard Wickland, meanwhile, got up to fifth place in the end. Liam Murphy is sixth, Anthony Neild seventh, Jack Harding 8th, Charlie Charman 9th, and Alex Preston 10th. There is confirmation of that result then, with Roach taking a valuable 7.3 second win over Alan Henderson in second. Blake Baldwin, Greensmith and Wickland round out the top 5. Outside the top 10, it's John Davies 11th, then Paul Sheard, Ray Worley, Jamie Goddard, Jeremy Crook, David Henderson, George Grant, Jim Hart, David Willoughby and Carl Garnett, with Steve Dolman, Alex King and Ian McDonald rounding out the 23-car field.
I wasn't expecting that at all. Yeah, I mean, the car felt brilliant. It was quite difficult to know how wet it was going to be. Yeah, I got a good start and just thought, right, you know, pretend it's qualifying, and managed to get away the first couple of laps and then just try not to make any mistakes.
I don't think anybody could match Tom at the start. When everybody were finding the feet, Tom just had more confidence, just went. And that was fair enough, just let him go kind of thing, and I was okay doing my own thing. And then towards the end of the race, James was a bit stronger in the braking, especially. He was catching at every corner just on the brakes. Everywhere else we were quite even. And he had a couple of moves there on the last lap, but just managed to hang on.
Yeah, it was pretty scary to start with for the first few laps. It was just sort of a drying track, and it was hard to pick where the fastest line was. And we all sort of managed to sort ourselves out. Tom got a cracking start. I got a rubbish start, just me. But then the car gradually came on, and I managed to catch Alan, but as much as I tried, I just couldn't pass him.
Well, the cars are heading out onto the circuit for round 4 of the championship. Join us after the break to find out what happens. Hello and welcome back to Anglesey, where the cars are gridding up for round 4 of the championship. Before that gets underway, let's take a look back at what happened in the Masters Championship in round 3. But it was a lively start to the race for Ray Worley, who took to the grass to overhaul Jeremy Crook on the run towards Rocket. Steve Dolman had a nice battle with Ian McDonald early on before passing him and pulling away. David Willoughby came home 6th in the class, whilst Jim Hart was 5th. George Grant was just up the road from him in 4th position, behind Jeremy Crook, who was on the podium. It was a fight though between Ray Worley and Paul Sheard for the win, a fight that saw Sheard come out on top by a narrow margin. Well, on Saturday before racing got underway, we caught up with several of the Masters Championship competitors.
What we've done actually, they've always has been a Masters within our series, but what we've done is the BRSCC have introduced it right across the board now on the championship. So basically, it means that we have more and more people go in for it, and they're all eligible if they're 45 and over. It was very well accepted when we introduced it last night to the team when we did our presentations. We hope it will increase the numbers. Also, it gives them something to be an achievement for them, and so they can then focus on the fact that they have their own series within that they're able to win.
It's a little race within a race, so we're racing with like-minded people, probably in the mid-half towards the back of the field. We try not to have any contact whatsoever, and we have a good fun doing it.
It is the fun aspect of motorsport. I mean, and that is what a lot of people tend to forget. You know, it's this isn't serious. We're not in Formula One. But we want to have some, good ding-dong battles, and I think we certainly give value for money to the spectators.
It would be excellent if there was another 10 in the Masters Cup, and it may develop into something very interesting. As you say, there's a lot of people it may give them that just extra push. You say, yeah, I think I'll have a go at that.
Very late start of racing, very pleased I did it. And you missed a lot out of your life if you hadn't had a go. I'm never going to be the fastest driver on the grid. It gives me something to have a go at, and with a bit of luck I might get a few points and might get somewhere.
So the grid is set, and we are about to go racing for the second time here at Anglesey. The grid is set by the results from race 1, so it's Roach on pole with Henderson alongside. Away we go, and it's Alan Henderson this time who makes the best start from the outside of the front row, sweeps through into the race lead into turn 1. Roach, I think, slotted into 2nd. Yes, he did. Greensmith is 3rd. Then it's side by side for 4th between Richard Wickland on the inside and James Plate Baldwin on the outside. I cannot say enough how impressed I've been by Richard Wickland this weekend. Fantastic driving in the wet conditions. He's going up into 4th place. Look, eases Blake Baldwin out over the curb and the grass, but that's absolutely fine. Just good hard racing. As up into 4th place goes Wickland, knocks Blake Baldwin, the Mark 1 champion from a couple of years ago, down to 5th place. Out through Church Corner go the leaders. Briefly, I noticed, off in the distance, Roach was alongside Henderson for the lead. He's slotted back in behind now. Blake Baldwin, meanwhile, is fighting back on the inside of Richard Wickland. Steve Dolman in the background had a big spin coming out of Church up into the braking zone. They all fan out 2 and 3 wide into the Rocket Complex. On board with Greensmith in 3rd. He's looking up the inside of Tom Roach here for 2nd place. Oh, and Roach wipes his car across the nose of Johnny Greensmith's number 5 machine. That was very close indeed through the right-hand element of Rocket. Now into Peel, and look in the rear-view mirror, because coming up the inside of us for 3rd place is James Blake Baldwin. Great move from James. Dives his way through into 3rd, eases his way in front, and there's nothing Johnny Greensmith can do about that as they drop down the hill into the left-hander at the top of the corkscrew. Out in front, look, Tom Roach is harrying Alan Henderson again, trying to find a way back through into the race lead if he can. Windscreen wipers on, not because it's raining, but because there is quite a bit of standing water on the track after overnight rain. It is nice and bright again this morning here at Anglesey, but the overnight showers have left the track in much the same condition, actually, that the drivers experienced in race 1 yesterday. Out through the hairpin they go. There's John Davies alongside Alex Preston, silver and yellow cars. It's John that gets out in front. So Henderson leads the way. Roach is 2nd. Blake Baldwin is 3rd. It's 4th for Greensmith. 5th place is Richard Wickland. 6th place for Anthony Neal. 7th is Liam Murphy. 8th Charlie Charman. 9th there is Paul Sheard, just ahead of the 43 car of Jack Harding, who rounds out the top 10 at the completion of the first lap. Leading forward, just getting away, and on board in 4th place with Johnny Greensmith, who's watching James Blake Baldwin starting to apply the pressure to the Blendini car of Tom Roach for 2nd place. Henderson just making a few cars length of a break, but not enough to break the slipstream. That's so crucial around the Anglesey circuit. The slipstream really comes into play up the school straight towards Rocket. And until you're really a second or so ahead of the car behind you, you will be giving away that aerodynamic advantage to the car behind in a straight line. So Roach will tuck himself into that hole in the air being made by the race-leading number 1 car of Alan Henderson. Try maybe to close in, not to overtake for the time being, but just to get back within striking range over the next few corners. Speaking of which, Richard Wickland is right back with the lead. As I said at the start of the lap, the top 4 were getting away. Wickland, though, is proving me wrong, going right back after them, and is enjoying his time at the sharp end of the field. Richard, 6th place in the championship coming into this weekend after 2 solid finishes in the first 2 rounds at Snetterton. On board with Greensmith again, and well, I said that Henderson had broken away from Roach, and he's made a liar out of me because Tom Roach has now caught him back up again by the end of the lap. Down through the left-hander, bit of a crack in the windscreen. Look on Johnny Greensmith's car. Look how close Tom Roach is to Alan Henderson, though, out in front of us. We're also closing in on Blake Baldwin, though, for 3rd place. So it's Henderson and Roach, then the 3 blue cars. Blake Baldwin with the orange stripe, and then you have the middle car of Johnny Greensmith, Richard Wickland, and behind. What can Tom Roach do about Alan Henderson? A double race victory would go down very, very nicely indeed at Blendini Motorsport. Tom desperately trying to fight back after a bit of a disappointment with that puncture in race 2 at Snetterton. Johnny Greensmith, meanwhile, is looking for 3rd place up the inside of James Blake Baldwin, but he decided he was a bit too far back. 2 completely different lines being taken by the leaders through the final turn, but it's that wide sweeping line that again yields a bit more grip for Alan Henderson. He carries more speed off the corner, so although midway through the turn Tom Roach was alongside him, by the time they get to the next corner the extra speed has told, and it has taken Alan Henderson back in front. Through the hairpin at the banking, and Roach gets very close indeed to the back of the reigning champions car. He's got an overlap. No, not quite. Again, it's the momentum that counts on the exit of the corner. And Henderson just managing to stay out in front. Through Church they go. Roach, though, visibly closer this time than he was a lap ago, so he'll be right in the slipstream. And if there's any sort of a breeze, any sort of a headwind, that makes the slipstream effect even stronger. Roach is definitely closing all the time. Close enough maybe to have a go on the brakes. He thinks about it, but Henderson had it covered and drives down the middle of the road, as it's his every right to do, and defends the position nicely. Tom Roach, though, is the master of MX-5 racing. He's going to try and go right around the outside here, isn't he, and find a bit more grip. That might just work. It has worked. Beautiful driving from Tom Roach. Can he make the move stick into Peel? He's on the outside line, but that is where the grip is. And I think that Tom Roach, with 2 fantastic outside manoeuvres through Rocket and Peel, has gone through into the race lead. Great stuff. Well, both of these drivers are potential champions, and this really is the fight we were hoping to see in 2016. And if they can continue on in this vein, we are in for one heck of a season. Tom Roach, then, your new race leader. Alan Henderson drops into 2nd place, but he'll be keen to stick with the leader and potentially try and fight back over the next few laps. Welcome back to Anglesey and round number 4 of the 2016 BRSCC Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. This is the midfield scrap on a damp circuit here at Anglesey, but it's been raging all race. Liam Murphy just ahead of Charlie Charm, and then the yellow car of Alex Preston, the silver machine, number 33 of John Davies, and in behind them Jack Harding, who's been struggling for a wet setup this weekend, but is just about tagging along at the back of this train of cars. Out through Rocket and Peel they go, and John Davies in the silver machine making his return to the championship. These were not the conditions he would have been hoping for, though, I'm sure, in which to relearn the car after missing the first round of the championship at Snetterton. Hope to see John back there throughout the rest of the season. Charlie Charman, who's in his first full season of SuperCup racing, exploring the limits of adhesion there through the left-hander onto the Tom Price straight. That's opened the door potentially for Alex Preston to look up the inside into the banking, but Alex, oh well, he was close enough because Charman outbraked himself, and Preston gets to the inside, but Charman rescues that with some good momentum off the corner and holds on to the position. So, Tom Roach then, leading the way. Alan Henderson it is in 2nd position. We're into the second half of the race now, but James Blake Baldwin has closed right in on the pair of them as well. In behind, James currently has the fastest lap of the race as well, so he's really flying out through the banking, down towards Church Corner, and he could be the man perhaps most likely to make a move here. What this also does is it takes a bit of pressure off Tom Roach, because thus far, Alan Henderson has been focusing solely on trying to retake that lead that he lost a few laps ago up at Rocket, but now he's having to watch his mirrors almost as much as he's looking out of his windscreen. So Henderson a little bit distracted in a real Mazda sandwich here, heading into the Rocket complex again. Inside, outside, no way through. James Blake Baldwin looks right around the outside, and does he get the inside line for the second part of Rocket? He does. Is there any grip there to make the move, though? This is the question. Henderson's fighting tough on the outside. They trade a little bit of paint there. Out over the curb goes Blake Baldwin as well, and that's lost him quite a bit of momentum, unfortunately. So all of the hard work he'd done to close in on this group has now been undone. Back down the hill again. Henderson almost seems to have been spurred on by that challenge, doesn't he? Because he's right back with car number 25, Tom Roach. Out over the curbs again in towards the hairpin. They've dropped Johnny Greensmith, and Richard Wickland unfortunately has had a drama, and he's dropped down outside the top 10 as well while we were away. So Richard Wickland, who had been running 5th and having a really strong weekend, unfortunately his second race has not he's not going to deliver quite as much as it once promised. Ray Worley here having a nice little dice with the 77 car of Jeremy Crook. And this is in part of the Masters Championship as well, and synchronised drifting coming out of Rocket. That was nicely done. And in behind them now, look, is Jamie Goddard in the silver number 91 car, trying to get himself alongside Jeremy if at all possible. Comes out of Peel, gets himself alongside. That was nice driving. He's got the grippier side of the road into the next turn as well. Ray Worley turns in front of them, but behind, I think that Goddard went through. Yes, he did. Right out over the curbs. That's brave, but just finds some traction, scrabbles for grip, and gets himself in front. Well, we're on the final lap of the race. Tom Roach it is who still leads, but look at that, by less than half a car's length really over Alan Henderson, who's right within slipstreaming range now to go onto the school straight for the final time. Henderson certainly is trying to size him up for a move, pulls out of the slipstream early, but this will be the wrong side of the road really. He realises this, ducks back into the slipstream, but that maybe his opportunity missed. Roach will surely defend. Henderson also has to defend though, because Blake Baldwin's trying to go up the inside of him as well. They do make a bit of contact on the apex, and for the second time this race, a tiny little bit of paint being traded between Henderson and Blake Baldwin has allowed Tom Roach to pull out just a few car lengths advantage. Well, with only half a lap to go, that may be it now. I think Roach has probably got this one under control, unless Henderson can pull out something magic in the final sector. Down the hill in towards the corkscrew, which is not in use on this layout, but the first element of it is there, that left-hander. They then head out onto the international loop, and Alan Henderson is trying his very hardest to reel in the race leader again. Up into the braking zone, he's just not close enough, and this really is the last available overtaking opportunity, barring a mistake, and mistakes are not something we see very often from Tom Roach. I say that as he slides the tail of the car out mid-corner, but gets away with it. Down into the last turn they come though, and Tom Roach could be about to become a double race winner here in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup at Anglesey, and become our first two-time winner as well. We had 3 different winners from the first 3 races, but Tom Roach becomes the first to do the double. He wins round 4 at Anglesey. Henderson is second. James Blake Baldwin is in third. 4th place goes the way of Johnny Greensmith. 5th position, I think, is going to go to Anthony Neal. Yes, it does. Then it's 6th for Paul Sheard. 7th place is Liam Murphy. This is the battle for 8th between Charlie Charman and Alex Preston, but Charman gets it. Preston is 9th, and Jack Harding rounds out the top 10. But it is Blendini Motorsport who celebrate again here at Anglesey. Tom Roach wins round number 4 of the 2016 Championship. Here's confirmation of the result. Wins it by 4/10 in the end. The top 3 covered by less than a second, with Henderson and Blake Baldwin behind him. Greensmith 4th, Neal 5th, then Sheard, Murphy, Charman, Preston and Harding. Outside the top 10, it's 11th for John Davies, then Richard Wickland, Jamie Goddard, Jeremy Crook, Carl Garnett, Ray Worley, George Grant, David Henderson, David Willoughby and Steve Dolman. Jim Hart, Ian McDonald and Alex King round out the 23 finishers. Again, all 23 starters reach the end of the race.
Yeah, it was Alan got a much better start than I did. I kind of bogged down and then wheel spin, and so yeah, it wasn't good off the start. And I felt much quicker when I was behind, but then as soon as I got past, it was Alan looked quicker than me, so yeah, it was really close. And then I could see James caught, and James seemed to catch us really quickly, so I think he was fast.
It was pretty much similar to yesterday. Got a really good run off the line, very little wheel spin. But I don't know if it's tyres or something that Tom's got, because I haven't got fresh tyres on. He just seems to have a little bit more traction. And coming out the second corner, he just managed to get a little bit of a drive on us. And then We're kind of side by side for a bit, and I stayed in front for a bit, and then just one lap, I can't remember where it was, he just, the same kind of scenario, just a little bit more traction, managed to get alongside, so yeah, it was alright. We were a lot closer than what we were yesterday. We made a few little tweaks to the car, and it definitely worked.
The car came to me. Chris Dawkins at Kent MX-5 Services made a few changes from where the same conditions were yesterday, and it just brought the car on leaps and bounds. Unfortunately, so did Alan, Mr. Alan Henderson, so we were both up there with Tom this time. Drying circuit, and just couldn't get past again, so frustrating.
Well, race 2 saw plenty of dicing in the Masters Championship once again. Jim Hart had another trouble-free run in his immaculately prepared Bora Motorsport car after a good early scrap with Paul Sheard Racing's Steve Dolman. David Willoughby made the top 5 this time, whilst George Grant had several good battles on his way to 4th place. Ray Worley and Jeremy Crook put on a great show in their fight for second, which eventually went the way of Crook, but only after the pair had swapped places on several occasions. This was all happening though behind Paul Sheard, who took another class win and finished in 6th place overall. A very impressive run.
Well, the idea is that it's actually a series designed to give an incentive to the more mature gentleman racer or lady racer, and it is run as a gentleman series, and we have our own points system. The way that it's actually run and the way that the points work, it's possible for every single person to be in touch the whole season, no matter how they do, because we don't award hundreds of points as in the normal season. It depends how many people as to how many points. When I'm going around, I'm looking to see the other competitors who are in the Masters Series, and it's those that I'm particularly interested in getting past. We actually award an additional point for the fastest lap and the most places that you actually get past. That being the case, we're always trying, just in the last few laps, to try and get that extra bit of speed to get the last lap.
Well, we've had plenty of action already in the first 2 races of the weekend here at Anglesey, and race 3 looks set to be the best of the lot. Join us after the break to see what happens next. Hello and welcome back to a now sunny and dry Anglesey circuit for round number 5 of the 2016 Championship. With dry weather conditions, this should be a really great race. So the cars are gridding up and we're ready to go racing for the final time this weekend at Anglesey. Finally, the glorious spring weather that the rest of the country has been enjoying has made its way to North Wales, a bone dry track, and we're away and racing an even start from both of the front row men. On board again with Johnny Greensmith, it's Tom Roach to our left, it's Alan Henderson directly in front of us in the white car, and coming through on the inside line is James Blake Baldwin again, who Johnny Greensmith seems to have been dicing with all weekend. Oh, and they get a bit close for comfort there, a bit of a contact between the two of them, but Blake Baldwin hangs on. Alan Henderson and Tom Roach, they were side by side again for the race leads. They make their way down towards Church Corner for the first time. Blake Baldwin's there on the inside as well. This is getting too close for words. Watch for the run that Greensmith gets. Johnny Greensmith carries visibly more speed off Church Corner than all of the cars in front of him. He's already into 3rd place. He's now going for 2nd on Blake Baldwin as Tom Roach has got well and truly shuffled out of line. I think that's Paul Sheard alongside him, isn't it? Yes, it is. Paul Sheard in the mix for the first time this weekend as well. Greensmith throws one down the outside of Henderson into Rocket, but can't stop the car. Runs a little bit out over the curbs and the grass. So too further back does Jack Harding, who then gives Charlie Sharman a bit of a tap in the tail as he rejoins. Charlie out into the dirt, but hangs on to the position. So already a much more frenetic style of racing that we're seeing with the dry track, isn't it? As the drivers, all who have maybe struggled in the slippery conditions in the first 2 races, now very keen to get their way to the front and start scoring some points. Out onto the Tom Price straight then. It's Henderson that leads the way. It's Greensmith in second. It's then 3 abreast for third. On the inside line, Blake Baldwin. On the outside is Roach. And coming through the middle is Paul Sheard. Great to see Paul at the sharp end of the field. He struggled in the wet. In the dry, though, he's every bit as quick as everyone else. Out of the hairpin, he slots into 4th place, just ahead of Tom Roach 5th. It's Neild in 6th. It's then Murphy 7th. Charman 8th. Looks like that is Harding 9th, and John Davies 10th, and up the inside comes Tom Roach on Paul Sheard, and they both got the inside of James Blake Baldwin. And how on earth did they all come out of that, not only in one piece, but in the same order as well? It is still Blake Baldwin 3rd, it's still Paul Sheard 4th, and it's Tom Roach then 5th place. They're losing touch to the leaders though. Paul Sheard's all out on the grass, he's all out of shape as well, spins across the track, and crunch straight into the tyre wall. What a rare mistake that was from Paul Sheard. He is normally so consistent and such a steady pair of hands, but that was a definite mistake. Ran out onto the grass, lost control of the car, and was looking not to collect anyone else as he spun across the track. Well, here I think we'll try and recover back to the pit lane. Meanwhile, we've got a real fight on our hands for the race lead. Johnny Greensmith, still winless in 2016 thus far, wants to try and find a way past the reigning champion Alan Henderson, who's defending the middle ground into Rocket. For the second lap in succession, Greensmith goes to the outside, but he snatches a break this time, and perhaps wary of that, just backs out of the move. Didn't want to find himself overshooting, which is very easy to do there, and end up out on the grass. Oh, breathless stuff, but it is Henderson leading the way, Greensmith in second. It's then a 4-car train for third. That, unfortunately, is George Grant, one of our Masters competitors, who is out of the race with damage. Oh, after a rather bizarre incident up at Rocket, that looks as though he's collided with Jamie Goddard and Carl Garnett, who clouted his front right corner, so damage to both front corners of the car for George Grant, and he is now joined in the pit lane by Paul Sheard, who did indeed recover back onto the track, but has pulled in to retire the car. So things may be, dare I say it, just calming down now. They're pairing off at the head of the field. 2 for the lead, 2 for third, 2 for fifth, and then 2 for seventh as well. The 2 for the lead are Henderson and Greensmith. Then it is Blake Baldwin and Roach for third, Neild and Murphy for fifth, and Jack Harding battling John Davies for seventh as well, a little bit further back. There are Anthony Neild and Liam Murphy though, making their way through the final turn in their fight for 5th position. Across the start-finish line again. Henderson may be just breaking away here from Johnny Greensmith in 2nd place. Johnny just lacking that last 10th or so of outright pace, isn't he? We've completed 3 laps. It's nearly a 1-second lead now for Henderson, which means he's virtually broken the toe, which is so crucial in Mazda MX-5 racing. Certainly the same can't be said for Anthony Neild though. He's very much got Liam Murphy within slipstreaming range as they go out through Church and onto the school straight. Right up over the curbs but not onto the grass, so that's okay. No track limits issues, but also they won't be losing too much traction as they make their way up the hill into the braking zone for 3rd place. Look at Tom Roach, who also snatches a break heading into the Rocket complex as he tries to find a way past James Blake Baldwin. Out of the corner, back up towards the right-hander at Peel. Wheel on the grass there for Roach as he turns into that right-hander, which is off camber anyway, so it's not the grippiest part of the circuit at the best of times when you've got a wheel on the green stuff, especially green stuff that is still quite damp, I'd imagine, after last night's rain and yesterday's rain as well. That is certainly adding to the risk factor for Roach, and that little moment has just brought Neild, and maybe even, you could argue, Liam Murphy into play too. So we have 3 cars there, nearly 4 cars you'd say, dicing for 3rd, and I'd say that this group is also catching a slightly fading Johnny Greensmith, so it's all concertinaing together quite nicely at the head of the field. Down towards the end of the 4th lap of the race, in fact the whole field is pretty much together. The top 8 or so anyway are all within the same shot. It's then Charlie Charman who's leading the next train in the white and red car in the background, Richard Wicklen in behind him as he tries to fight back after a promising start to the weekend yesterday that went a bit downhill in this morning's first race. Through turn 1 go the leading group again, and into the banking where no one's quite close enough to make a move, but there was a little bit of a mistake there from James Blake Baldwin, wasn't it? Just missed the apex, ran a bit too deep, and that means that Tom Roach closes a car length or so, closes right back within the slipstream as well, about to head on to the fastest part of the circuit through Church Corner. And nice and neat out of there, well, for Blake Baldwin anyway, but not for Tom Roach. He gets all four wheels out on the grass, so any chance he had of moving ahead of his former Mark 1 Championship rival, they have now disappeared. Instead, he's having to watch his mirrors because Anthony Neal, the Paul Sheard Racing mechanic, but also very handy racing driver, is right with him. And Johnny Greensmith, with armfuls of opposite lock, has run wide at Rocket. He loses second, he loses third, and he might even lose fourth place here to Neal, who's trying to go around the outside up in towards Peel Corner. I'm sure Greensmith won't make this one easy for him. Indeed he doesn't. He shuffles Anthony Neal back out wide, so Johnny at least salvages fourth, but what a costly mistake that was. He was on for a solid second place, and instead he finds himself staring at the boot lid of Tom Roach and down in fourth position. Just carried a bit too much speed into the corner. We've seen him trying some pretty audacious outbraking manoeuvres into Rocket already in this race, and that time just unfortunately ran out of road. So down into the hairpin, he's now got Neal and Murphy really trying to find a way past him. He could yet lose more places if he's not too careful. Neal in the silver and green car, then Murphy the blue and yellow. They're being caught by Jack Harding, who's much happier in these dry conditions, isn't he, than in the wet that they've had in races 1 and 2. Through the final corner, and Tom Roach, having made a mistake earlier on in that lap, actually ended up gaining a place at the very next corner at the expense of Johnny Greensmith, who we ride back on board with again. Johnny will be fired up after that, I'd imagine. The red mist may well be descending. He'll be very keen, if he can, to get himself back on the podium. It's all valuable points, and Johnny in his second year now of SuperCup racing, having won championships in the past in Mark 1 Mazdas, is certainly one of the forces to be reckoned with in 2016, but still looking for his first win of the year. He's just breaking away now, though, from Anthony Neal, and a grassy excursion for Liam Murphy behind him, loses him a bit of ground. Here is the fight for what is now second place, though, between Blake Baldwin and Tom Roach, and Roach is trying to go around the outside, just searching maybe for where the most grip is and where the best way to get past James Blake Baldwin is. James is not an easy person to overtake. James had all sorts of mechanical dramas last year, but he's got a new car underneath him for 2016, and it's working well, touch wood. So great to see him fighting for podiums now on a very regular basis. Tom Roach, though, after winning 2 races, won't be satisfied to sit in third, so this battle is going to run and run. Roach is perhaps a little bit quicker at this portion of the race, maybe, and he's certainly forcing Blake Baldwin to think about defensive lines into the hairpin. Really nice to be racing on the international circuit as well for the first time in several years. First time ever, in fact, for SuperCup, I think. And this hairpin is really opening up the door for some more overtaking opportunities than we might ordinarily see. Back on board with fourth place man Johnny Greensmith into the final turn. Closes up quite dramatically under braking there on the cars behind. Does he hold that through the exit of the corner? He does as well, actually. That was a good run through the final turn for Greensmith. Roach is, of course, in that all too difficult position of attacking and defending at the same time. Doesn't really know which way to look, although this being Tom Roach, I'd imagine he's much more concentrating on trying to move forward than stopping himself from falling back. He's a real racer, is Tom. Very popular man in the paddock. Great to have him back in SuperCup full-time this year, but he's a bit slow off the banking that time and just moves across half a car's width to the inside into Church, just to deter Johnny Greensmith from maybe having a look up the inside. Roach again, though, is a bit scrappy through there, just dips 2 wheels into the dirt. Greensmith might have got himself alongside here. He's got an overlap. Oh, he's so near yet so far. Can't quite get himself alongside. Now tries to switch back to the inside line. And Roach is so late on the brakes in trying to defend. He almost runs into the side of James Blake Baldwin. Blake Baldwin saw him coming, so he drifted out wide to leave him room. But this now risks shuffling Tom Roach out wide. That was beautiful opportunistic driving from Johnny Greensmith. Gets himself alongside into third position. Yes, makes it stick into Peel. Nicely done. Well, there was a lot going on then, but essentially a mistake from Tom Roach ended up costing him a place 2 or 3 corners later. Now, what can Greensmith do about Blake Baldwin? He's back on the podium. Can he get back into second place? This has brought this whole group of 5 cars together now, because Anthony Neal and Liam Murphy are joining in the battle. John Davies has got ahead of Jack Harding further back, but they're a little bit detached from this quintet. Into the hairpin, a few drivers just ducking out of line to think about having a go maybe on the brakes, but again, difficult when you've got cars behind you as well that are trying to find a way past you. Alan Henderson, meanwhile, is streaking away with this one, isn't he? He's missing out on all of the action further behind him. Comes across the start-finish line to log another lap. This is what's going on further back, though. It is Blake Baldwin still second. Greensmith is there in third. This is on board with Johnny into the first corner. Just clip the apex curb, but not too hard. You don't want to unsettle the car. and end up out on the grass, as we saw from Paul Sheard earlier on. Well, if anyone's going to make a move in this group, and Greensmith perhaps you'd imagine is the man most likely to, they're running out of time because we're on to the final lap of the weekend. Round number 5 of the championship coming to a very, very entertaining close though, isn't it? Maybe not for the race win, but for second position we have 5 cars still in contention, and any 2 of these 5 cars could fill out the remaining podium places. Up the hill, who got the best run out of Church, who's got the best slipstream, and who is bravest on the brakes? That may well decide the order in which these 5 cars finish. Up into the braking zone, and well, Greensmith considered going up the inside there, didn't he? But I think discretion was the better part of valour. He settles back in line in 3rd, into the second part of Rocket, and out towards Peel, where we don't often see that much overtaking, at least not in the drive, so there's really one more overtaking opportunity, and that is the hairpin at the end of the Tom Price straight. So will we see anybody ducking out of line? It's all about getting a good run out of this left-hander and not running too wide over the curbs. Well, they all use lots of curb but no grass, so they have decent traction out of the corner. There is Alan Henderson. He's only 2 corners away from another race win, his 2nd of the year this will be, having won the first race at Snetterton. Last year he virtually won a race every weekend, and he's continuing that pattern again at the start of 2016. Behind him the order remains unchanged, so out of the final turn, car number 1, the AK Automotive driver Alan Henderson slides his way to the checkered flag and wins round number 5 of the championship. Second place is going to be a dash to the line, but I think it's one that will be won by James Blake Baldwin. Johnny Greensmith is 3rd, Tom Roach is 4th, Anthony Neal 5th, Liam Murphy 6th, John Davies 7th, and Jack Harding comes home in 8th. 9th position across the line will be Alex Preston, and rounding out the top 10, Charlie Charman. There is confirmation of that top 10. Alan Henderson with the race win, and also the fastest lap as well, and the quickest race lap we've seen all weekend quite comfortably. Outside the top 10 it's Carl Garnett, Richard Wicklin, Jeremy Crook, Jamie Goddard and Steve Dolman, then Ray Worley, David Willoughby, David Henderson, Jim Hart and Ian McDonald, with Alex King the remaining finisher. We lost unfortunately Paul Sheard and George Grant pretty early on in that race.
It's never easy as such, but halfway through the race I saw the gap was keeping getting bigger and bigger, so I started to just think about not making mistakes and short shifting a little bit, just like 500 revs earlier. Just it was kind of maintaining the lap time ish, but the grip today was absolutely fantastic, but the lap times were quite slow. I think it's because the temperatures come right up, we set the tyre pressure quite low, and it just seemed to work really well.
That was hard work. All I could see in the mirror was just a train of SuperCup MX-5. So it's just, yeah, that was hard to keep them all behind me. But yeah, just trying to put my car in the right place and get a run as and where I could, really. We made some setup changes and unfortunately it didn't work.
I think I made it tough for myself, outbreaking myself at the top end. Little senior moment, I think. Lack of concentration, and then I just got knuckled down, and I knew Tom was slowing down and James as well, and I thought, well, I wonder if I can get past James, and I thought I might just keep it safe and keep it a 3rd, you know what I mean? So I think I'm being too safe, I think, to be honest.
So let's take a look at the championship standings. It's Henderson with the championship lead, but by just 6 points over James Blake Baldwin. Johnny Greensmith is 3rd, Liam Murphy is 4th, and Tom Roach is now 5th, and a little bit closer to the top than he was coming into this weekend. So as Alan Henderson celebrates a race win, we now look forward to the next rounds. We hope you'll join us as we head overseas to Zolder.